All right, squad. All right, welcome back to the Friday Night Prepper Pre-Party Show. We've got a fun one in store for you tonight. And before I go ahead and introduce tonight's guest, we'll just go through our little bit of housekeeping here. That gives people a chance to get the notifications and anybody that's watching ads. I see we've already got several people in chat. Welcome. I will say hello to you in just a few minutes. But as a reminder, if you're brand new to the channel, please be kind to the mods. We have several of them here volunteering tonight. And the key word there is volunteering. They are not paid. So if you've got any guff or any grief or any backlash that you want to throw it my way. And if you're watching this on replay, same thing, throw it in the comments. If you get anything of value out of this, please consider giving me a thumbs up. And I appreciate everybody. And I hope you have a great time with us tonight and have a great weekend. So all that being said, let's get right into it. I'd like to introduce tonight's guest, which many of you already know, Praxis Prepper. How you doing today, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on tonight. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Yeah, we've definitely been fans of your content for years. I think I started watching you a few years ago when you were working on, I think at the time it was your barn, but we'll get into some of that stuff now.
I think it was a house. Maybe it just looked like a barn.
Oh, was it the house?
I have no idea. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I built lots of different things, from chicken coops to underground bunkers to full-size houses. So I'm not sure what you might have been seeing, but I hope it wasn't my house, because then it would sound like I live in a barn.
Yeah, no, maybe it was. You had like the 360 cam set up?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess, yeah, my house, that's based. Yeah, I guess it looks a little bit barn-like. Okay.
Well, it was very bones when I was watching it. It was bare bones.
Yeah.
So cool. Awesome. Well, we're going to talk about all that stuff tonight. Where can people find you? I know you've got the YouTube channel here, which I linked in the description. And please, everybody, if you're watching this, please go ahead and check out his channel. But where else are you?
I used to work in marketing, and you know what they say about people who like work in the sausage industry? They don't want to have anything to do with eating sausages. I am so anti marketing myself that there's no other way for anyone to find me. There's my YouTube channel, and that's it. I think I did like a Facebook thing a million years ago. Maybe it's active, maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm exclusively on YouTube.
Wow. That's almost unheard of these days.
Is it? Maybe that's why like my channel's kind of unpopular a lot of the time.
No, you've got 20,000 subscribers. You're doing fantastic.
Well, yeah, but the last video I released had 400 views. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So well, I'm just usually told by people that I've been doing it for like 15 years, and most people have been doing it for 15 years have more than 20,000 subs. But the subs that I do have are great people. And whenever people jump onto my channel, and I actually get that quite a bit. People will say like, this channel is so appreciated. You should have like tons more subs. It'd really be a mixed bag if I did, because I think the absolute favorite thing I have about my channel is the interaction with people. I like to think that I can, I've done a lot of stuff, so I have a lot of experiences that I can share with people. Just legitimately, you do enough things, you're bound to learn a few things. There's that element to it, but I learn so much from people, where I'll bring up a topic, and then people will kind of riff on it and, introduce, hey, you might be interested in this source and this source. And I learn so much, and I love the community aspect to it. There's people, and you got the same thing on your channel too, I'm sure, where there's people that show up all the time, and, you're kind of like online friends. And that's like my favorite part of my channel. And if it got really big, I think it'd be really difficult to manage that. You could say, well, I'll just focus on certain people, but I'd honestly feel kind of rude, like ignoring some comments, like someone asks a question, but it's just, if you get too many, you can't answer all of them. So, so I kind of like the way that my channel is, even though people are always saying it should be bigger. It's nice that I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm ignoring people, but I also don't feel like I'm dumping so much time into the channel that it's like my family never sees me or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Those are good boundaries, and I love that you value the connection with the audience. That's one of the things that my fear is that as my channel grows, like right now, I pretty much know everybody who's a regular watcher to my channel, right? And I can interact with them, and I even know a little bit about their personality, which is fantastic.
For sure, yeah.
But I do worry that like as the channel grows, that's going to become harder and harder, and it's something that makes it fun,
Yeah.
So let me say hi to the chat here. We had several people that were patiently waiting. We had Lee's, good to see you here. Appreciate you, brother. Susan, thank you. Michelle, Nerdy Prepper, Treasurer Investor, always good to see you.
I know Nerdy Prepper.
Yep. Lazarus Long, how are you doing tonight? Steve's lurking in the background. Appreciate you, Steve. Virginia Bushcrafter, got a great channel, you guys. Make sure you be checking him out too. F. Peer, thank you for joining. Oh, thank you so much, Nerdy Prepper Treasure Investor. You didn't have to do that, but we appreciate that. Two of your favorite preppers on one stream. Well, we'll try to do this again if it works out good for both of us then. Appreciate that.
I don't know if I want to do this lighting setup again. It took a long time to set up all these beautiful lights here. I think this is a one-shot deal, Sarge.
Okay, all right.
I'm kidding. No, I'd love to come back.
Yeah, and Nerdy Prepper Treasure Investor says Praxis does have a freaking awesome channel, and he really does. Let's start with the homesteading piece of it, I guess. Let's just get right into that. So you've been your current homestead. How many years have you been working on that?
I started building it just before COVID started, and I remember that because. I've done a couple different series on my channel. One was like this alien invasion series. It was kind of like a fake alien invasion, but it was really just a bunch of like prepping lessons all knitted together. Mm-hmm. So when I was going to be building my house, I knew that I wanted to do some kind of a series on it. And I'd had so much fun doing the alien invasion where there was like a bit of reality, a bit of like fantasy put in. I decided to do the build on the house based on some kind of a hypothetical pandemic that would be happening, and I'd be trying to finish up the house before the pandemic, made it really difficult, or just to kind of throw in some drama. And then like a real pandemic happened during the building of it, so I'll never like forget that. And people have all sorts of different ideas about how deadly the pandemic was or how deadly it wasn't. But one thing's for sure is it really made it difficult to build a house during it, because with the supply chain being all thrown all over the place, you'd want to be getting in like a cabinet door or something like that. But the place that builds them, that's like and one state over from you, they can't make any cabinet doors because one of the screws has to come from this other place. So it was this whole like crazy fiasco. But being a prepper, it actually worked out because I saw that kind of stuff coming ahead of time. I think the first time I did a video on it, was during that series about building the house. And it was one of these things where, I saw this thing developing, and I suggested to people I thought it was actually going to have legs because of like the R naught value and all that kind of stuff in the incubation period, and the way people seem to be reacting to it. So as soon as that happened, the prepper in my head said, you need to buy everything that you're going to need for this build that comes from anywhere in the world now. So I just ordered everything, and we had like a dirt lot here with a few areas that I could kind of store tools and stuff, and we were getting like washing machines and ovens and refrigerators. Excuse me. I'm exaggerating a little bit. Those came like once the house kind of was covered, but it was still like dripping on the inside because like the roof wasn't on yet. I went and I just got everything that I possibly could, because of that prepper mantra. It's better to, be prepared and have something not happen than to not be prepared and then, get caught with your pants down. So it really, really paid off during that situation. And that's one of the things about prepping and preparedness that, I think, and I bet you feel this all the time too. Whenever people hear about prepping and preparedness, they think, you preppers, you're preparing for one thing. It's like, the asteroid impacting, or the aliens invading by airdropping bird flu infected clown zombies, or some kind of like crazy kind of catastrophe. Like that's the thing that you're preparing for. But prepping and preparedness, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, it has so many other benefits just through normal everyday life. I'm always leaning on my preps, even if it's just because like I like buy packing tape in bulk, and I never get into a situation where it's like I gotta like pack something up and I'm like, oh, I gotta run out to the store to get packing tape. It's like, no, I go to the store up in my storage room, and I've got like 20 pallets of it up there. It's just it's a bit of exaggeration, but it's just such a wonderful way of living your life, to just take all those little bumps that could potentially be issues that like, just throw off your day, even leaving a key outside so you don't lock yourself out of your house. Like that's a prep to avoid like irritation and stuff like that. And I know you asked me about the homestead and, now we're talking about completely unrelated stuff. So anyway, yes, I built it, right at the beginning of COVID. And I think it took me like 2 years to get it all pretty much together. We moved in hastily on Christmas Eve night. We got our occupancy permit and nobody was planning on moving in that evening, but I was just so excited. I went back to the house we were temporarily staying at, again, Christmas Eve, and I walked in and said, hey everyone, who wants to move tonight? And we just started like loading mattresses onto the top of the car and had a great time and slept on the floor out here.
Oh,
and that's another great thing. Yeah, that's another great thing about doing this kind of stuff is like the spontaneity of a lot of this stuff. When you have a preparedness kind of mindset and you live a preparedness kind of lifestyle, you can throw your hat over the fence and, you'll have the sense that, you're going to be able to figure it out because, you've practiced these things before. You have the right kind of tools. And I think that's a wonderful aspect of prepping and preparedness too, is just the fact that it unlocks your ability to really fully live your life in a way where you are at the steering wheel. And I know even for myself, that's not 100% true. We all kind of rely on the society around us. I'm dropping my earbud out there. But it's so much more true, I think, for people who have self-reliance in their life that there are so many fewer things that you have to like ask permission for or wait for permission for, or, it really opens up your ability to live your life the way that you want to live your life, whatever that means. Whether it's me, I'm some crazy nut that lives out in the woods and, pisses out in my garden to put nitrogen in there, or however you want to live your life. Having that preparedness, self-reliance mindset allows you to unlock your life, to live it the way that you want to. And the world would be so much more interesting if more people, walk to the beat of their own drummer, I think. Yeah. It's even when I see people that are just doing like crazy, like idiotic stuff. Like there's someone down the road from me and they got the ugliest painted door. It's like some weird fluorescent kind of blue door. And it's the most garish thing in the world. I would never, ever want it on my own house, but I love the fact that they have that door in their house because they love it. And that I just think the world is so much better when people just do what they want to do and live their life their own way. It makes for a more rich experience for all of us.
Well, Praxis, we've got a surprise for you. Your neighbor is backstage and we're going to bring him on. Hopefully he doesn't watch this. I've actually done that too. I've talked about neighbors, and then I'm like, oh man, I hope they're not watching that episode.
Yeah, I've got one neighbor that actually does watch my channel, and I always tell all my neighbors, it's like, make sure you don't dox me. Never like go into the comments and like suggest that we're near each other or anything like that. But I don't really talk about prepping much in my regular life. I'll try to give people like helping hands. Like there's someone nearby and I'm trying to help him get his energy footprint down, to save money on his electric bill and everything like that. So, you want to spread these ideas out to people around you, but I don't really talk about it in terms of prepping in the real world.
Well, I probably should have let in with this one, but what does homesteading mean to you? What do you think that word means?
Well, that's honestly a really good question, because usually when I use the term homesteading, like on my channel, I feel kind of like a poser saying that, because whatever it is, I kind of feel like I don't necessarily qualify. Like homesteading to me is, it's the people, the pioneers that went out and they got their, quarter section or whatever. They go out with a wagon and that's it. And, sink or swim based on that. That's like homesteading to me. What's that term, like glamping? Like camping, except it's glamping.
Maybe modern
I'm
day
the glam version. Yeah, I'm the glam version of homesteading, whatever that kind of is.
I mean, from what you've shown us on your channel, I think you're way ahead of the average person in terms of...
Well, yeah, but this stuff, I talk a lot about this on my channel. Survival's not graded on a curve. The fact that you're doing better than other people doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna make the cut. And I always try to remind myself that I don't want to, rest on my laurels and be like, well, at least I'm not like that guy over there, because that's not really going to save you,
Yeah, I agree. I live, I've lived out in the country when I was in Kentucky and had a little chicken farm and whatnot. And now I live in a port city. and we got a lot of assets here that we would be a tier 1 target if the United States gets attacked. So all of my skills, that it's fun that I can do foraging. It's fun that, I'm pretty good at gardening, and I've done some wilderness survival stuff, and all that stuff's great. But if my city gets attacked, I may not last the first hour,
Yeah,
you just don't know.
Well, and ultimately it's all just a game of chance. I mean, all we can do is try to increase the number of scenarios that we can thrive during.
That's right.
We'll never check all the boxes, but certainly, even like I just referenced earlier, there are all sorts of scenarios like shit hits the fan that you run out of flour in your pantry kind of thing. Not if you got like 300 pounds of it waiting to go. So, I try to check off as many boxes as I can, and I don't try to delude myself that I'm anywhere near completely off grid and completely independent. I still have roots into the societal networks, and I still gain benefit off that. And I honestly have a long way to go to get anywhere near where I would really feel like I would be self-sufficient, specifically in the realm of gardening, which is something that I've always toyed with, but never seriously enough to really up my skill set with that. And it's really, it's a weakness that I have, and that's one thing that I really need to work on personally. But, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think once you run out of things that are challenges for you, life kind of gets less interesting. So I appreciate still having challenges. So I appreciate my ignorance.
Yeah. And that's a good point there too. I'm not always a completionist with it, but I try to start the new year off with what's one goal to increase my self-sufficiency that I can try to work on this year. Right.
What is your goal for this year?
Primitive fire starting.
Okay.
And
it is. Do you ever use a lens? I guess maybe, I don't know. Is that primitive or not? Maybe.
I wouldn't personally consider that primitive.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a good skill to know, and ferro rod is a good skill to know. But when I mean primitive, I'm talking about like hand drill or bow drill.
Yeah. That's hard. I've done it a couple of times. It's not easy. It does pay to have the right kind of wood material. You choose a wrong wood, and you can take a job that's difficult and make it just monstrous. So the material selection and having dry material helps, but still it's difficult, especially without the bow drill. When people are just like this thing, I've never been able to do that ever.
Yeah. And I took a class that the last Georgia Bushcraft on it, and I did not get smoke. But some of the people who were doing it, who were successful at it, said they thought hand drill for them was easier than bow drill because there's less moving parts, basically, to translate it, right? Like there's less failure points in it.
Yeah, well, it's certainly simpler, but for me personally, I've always had trouble getting the thing spinning anywhere. It doesn't even. I don't even know that I get it warm. Maybe lukewarm is as far as I get those.
Yeah, so I had just gotten out of that class, and do you know Dustin from Wazoo Survival Gear?
No, I don't.
He's the CEO for Wazoo Survival Gear.
Okay.
Good guy.
Yeah.
And I ran into him, and he's like, "So how's it going?" I told him, "I just came from fire making, hand drill fire making." And he said, "Oh, can I see your kit?" And I said, "Yeah." So I pulled it out of my backpack. 20 seconds, he had smoke. And I'm like, at least I know that.
Skill.
Yeah, I said, at least I know it wasn't the materials. It's I need to work on it more. That's all.
Yeah. And that's the best problem to have, is like when you know that the problem's within you, because of all the things in the world, you yourself are the thing that you have the most control over. So while a lot of people oftentimes think that if something was caused by them, that's a bad thing that you want to avoid, I think that's like the absolute best situation, because you don't have any more control over anything other than yourself. So that's good news.
Yeah, I guess so. So we'll see if I can, by the end of the year, if I can get a little coal, I'll be happy. See a couple of people that popped in. Bacon, it's always good to see you, my friend. How you doing? Silverback on 1 acre, thank you. Mary May, thank you for joining. See if I missed anybody else. Meatballs, thank you. Yeah, Wazoo Survival Gear makes good stuff, brother. And Nerdy Prepper Treasure Investor, thank you again. You don't have to do that. I appreciate it though. I love the occasional. I think he means cooking video on Praxis channel. Can you read that?
Oh, knowing me, I probably have a cocking video somewhere. Unless if they misspelled cock,
Yeah.
I definitely have cocking videos related to the homestead build. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and I probably played with the word during the video, knowing
Yeah.
that it was me.
To answer your question, yes, I did a couple of campfire cooking videos, but it's been a minute. I probably next time I go camping, I'll do some new ones. But yeah, I did one on like cowboy stew, and I had a fajitas video, and I don't know if you've ever had this Praxis where you finish it, you do all the edits, and then you load it up, and then something glitches, and it's just like corrupted.
Oh.
Have you ever had
No,
that?
not that. Sometimes I have other technical issues, but not that one.
Not that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got a couple videos in there. And Northern Girl Hobbies, is good to see you. Appreciate it. She says no cocking. Well, since we're on that topic, let's go to the chickens, right? So
Okay.
we were talking
Okay.
backstage about chickens. And so we were talking about the ratio of, roosters to hens, right? And so you've got eight hens per rooster. Is that right?
No, I have 6 hens and
Six
I have
hens.
2 roosters, and we actually didn't finish talking about this. One of the roosters is an older rooster. I think it's like 2 years old, but it's this tiny little bantam. He's a jerk. My boy loves him, and when my boy will pick him up, he'll just sit there and I'll like just look at him and talk about how evil he is, and he'll even let me hold him. But like if he's on the ground, he's like coming up and he's pecking at you all the time. If you hold him down, I think that's like works within their kind of like chicken language to mean like don't do that, and that seems to work with him. But anyway, he's kind of a jerk. And the other rooster is a full-scale rooster, and he's young. He's not even a year old yet. So I think maybe because he's young, that's why they're not fighting.
They're not fighting yet.
So yeah, we're kind of seeing how that goes. And we did mention, backstage when we were talking about the chickens, that I did have to kill the dad of the full size rooster that we have now, because he was fighting with the little bantam, and they were ripping each other, getting bloody, and it was just the lesser of all the evils. It was either kill them yourself as humanely as you can, let them kill each other, which is not humane, or exile one out into the woods and let it get ripped apart by coyotes. And of the 3, I ended up killing the dad, and I was mentioning to you, I was like almost in tears for 3 days. I did not enjoy that, but they force your hands because they're either going to rip each other apart or whatever. So at this point, I don't know if we'll just separate them. I haven't really figured that out yet, and maybe we'll build another little coop or something. I don't know.
And that helped when I had a lot of chickens. That helped to have a little bit of separate space for them.
Yeah.
Also, breed variety too. There are certain breeds that are more prone to fighting than others.
Yeah.
We had
little bantams, I guess, are supposed to be jerks. Ours is like living down to his reputation. So I'm hoping maybe if that one just gets old enough, he'll be like old and maybe too tired to fight. I don't know. I've never had chickens before. I'm learning as I go.
Yeah, we had a bantam that we called Old Dirty Bastard.
Well, that's a good sign for my future.
Like from Wu-Tang,
Yeah.
So frizzles. Do you have any frizzles for hens?
I don't even know what that is.
It's a variety of chicken.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like. First off, it sounds like some sort of adult toy.
Man, we're going sideways.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Nerdy Prepper started it.
For sure. So a frizzle is a type of chicken, and they tend to be known to be a lot more calm and docile, and
I'll look for those.
Very friendly. So we had pretty good luck with our frizzle roosters, and silkies was another one too. Silky roosters are kind of calm too.
Yeah. I think we might have some silkies. They got like the little things off to the sides. And,
they look kind of like a poodle.
Well, I just look like chickens.
So if you might have frizzles. Send me some pictures. Send me some pictures.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that later on. I'm sure this conversation is thoroughly interesting to everyone.
Enthralling for the audience. Yeah. But yeah, try separating them, and that's something I think that people should know if you're thinking about getting chickens, is that there's the flock has to be managed. It has to be managed.
Yeah, they'll manage each other, and they're not going to do it as humanely as you will.
Yeah, and it is sad when you have to cull the flock a little bit, if you have to cull a rooster, and some people are better at it than others. I'm kind of with you, Praxis, that like because I love animals so much, it's hard for
Yeah.
me to do that. It's hard for me to.
When they trust you, like, I walked right up and he trusted me to pick him up, and it went perfectly, absolutely perfectly, right through, first strike, and
Good.
it couldn't have gone better in that regard. But I still hated it. It was not my favorite day.
So I had a story for you backstage that I was saving for the audience. And hey, everybody that's just popping in. Yeah, that's right. Kentucky says those silky hens, they're great, and the roosters too. So I got tired of culling all the predators that were going after my chicken flock, and it was mostly possums and raccoons, right? So I got tired of constantly shooting them because I'm not good with that. It's just I'm a meat eater and all that stuff, but it's really hard for me to take a life. So then I got some have a heart traps, and I thought, okay, I got this problem solved. I'm going to put my have a heart traps out. You capture them. It's very humane. And then you can take them to another location, but check the legality on this, because not all states, allow movement of a wild animal. But you can, in theory, you can relocate them to another area, right? So caught a possum, and I'd done this. At this point, I'd done it probably a dozen times, and I had a great location. I'm not going to disclose that on the air, but I had a great location where they were going to be able to live a nice life with lots of food nearby and water and privacy, and there was not a lot of road, so there was less chance of them getting hit by a car. So I really was
food your neighbor's chicken farm?
I can neither confirm nor deny that it was near another farm. I can neither confirm nor deny that, but okay. I was feeling really good about, like, hey, this is great. I'm not killing any more raccoons. I'm not killing any more possums. So I get this possum one day, take him, pretty far away to this location, and then I take the cage, and it's about this big. Take the cage and I get it down on the ground, and you turn it away from you, and then you open it up, and almost always they just like book it. They just take off.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I open it up. He's not getting out. So okay. I'm like, oh, come on now. So I pick it up, and now I'm like shaking it, and he's got his little paws, and he's holding on to the sides, and he's not coming out of the cage. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I'm talking to him as I do it, and I'm like, dude, I could have killed you back at the farm. I'm trying to give you another chance here. You got to run. Now's the chance. You got to run. So I do it again, and now he drops out. And instead of running off, he stands his ground, and he looks at me, and he goes, and he's like showing me his teeth, and I'm like, you son of a bitch. And I'm like, so now I got to take you out, huh? And then I took the cage, and I kind of like did it like that a couple times, and finally he took off.
Oh, okay, yeah. You know what I do? I don't catch large things, but for our cars, like when you live out in the country, mice are always getting in your cars and chewing up your wires and everything. So if you don't have a cat or some other way of getting rid of mice, you got to trap them. And I use have a heart traps for that. And I'll take them across some river, by where we live. It's just a walk from here. But whenever I let them out, I'll put the cage down on its side, and I'll take like a stick and try to scare them out from the backside. Mm-hmm. So, if you get another obstinate possum, you might try like sticking a stick or something through and getting them to run out that way.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Exactly, Bacon. I do not have a boat, and I know nothing about boating accidents, and I know nothing about relocated animals that are probably harassing some poor neighbor, some poor farm in Kentucky right now. There's probably thousands of them. So, chickens, what else you got there for livestock? Anything else?
Chickens are all that we're doing right now at this point. We've toyed with the idea of, maybe goats at some point, but
that'd be cool.
Yeah, we're not in a huge rush at the moment. Chickens are, they're enough work. I like the simplicity of them. They kind of do their own thing. Mm-hmm. And I like that you can get food from them without killing them. Mm-hmm. We get, there's a rooster issue, but, primarily it's just, getting the eggs off. So I think we're just going to kind of stick with chickens. Most of our projects at this point are more energy projects. We've got about 6,000 watts of solar panels on the roof, and we've got a 10 kilowatt hour battery in the house. And that's good for most of the year. About at least half the year, that's providing all of our energy needs. But for the other half of the year, it's 80% or so, which is still a lot. I mean, having getting a whole half a year free and then 80% discount on the rest of the year. I see what people pay for their electric bills now, and I'm glad that I've got that. But still, you got to figure out where that extra 20% comes from. And at this point, we still can get that from the grid, but I've been looking a lot into micro hydro lately because we've got a number of streams that run through our property. One of them is one that we jump the mice over. And I think that's going to be one of the next projects that we're doing is a micro hydro installation. Even if we just get like a nice trickle of 300, 400, 500 watts off of it. And it seems plausible for the amount of water that we got going through. It'd be a nice change to wake up in the morning with your batteries more full than they were when you went to sleep. You really, if you do it right, when you get a whole solar system on your house, it really does kind of, or should influence a lot of the patterns of the way that you live your life. This time of year in particular, this kind of marginal period where it's not super cold, but it's not, the sun isn't up for very long. This is kind of a difficult time of year for us for cooking dinner, for example. Cooking breakfast is easy because it's still a little cool in the morning. So we get up, I start a fire, we've got a wood stove in the house, I can cook breakfast over the fire. But by the end of the day, I mentioned our greenhouse was like 85 degrees today. And you can open that up to the house and that heats our house. Ain't nobody want to have a fire in your house when, it's already kind of warm. You're cook yourself out of your house. So this time of year is kind of difficult because the sun's not up long enough to really have full electric power for cooking. But at the same time, you don't want to be cooking over fire. So, when you start using a lot of these kind of alternative technologies, it kind of changes your, the patterns that you live your life as. And if it doesn't, that's when it starts running into problems for people. When you're going to wash laundry, whether it's a sunny day or it's not a sunny day, or you're going to do this other kind of high energy intensive task, even though the sun's not out. So when we have a sunny day, that's a day that we do laundry because we have extra electricity for running that kind of stuff. Today was a sunny day, so it was a laundry day. So we change a lot of the patterns of our life, and with every new energy source, it'll offer more flexibility is kind of what I'm hoping. So that's what we're going to be doing. Is micro hydro is one of the big projects we're going to be working on.
Very cool. I definitely don't see a lot of people doing that, and I love that you got
it's weird.
This streams to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the weird things about micro hydro, I guess it's not actually weird. It's actually more like the power grid that everybody gets their energy from. But one of the things that is an aberration, I guess is a better way of putting it, from solar power is that when you're running with solar power, you've got your panels out in the sun, and you got your batteries, and then there's this device called a charge controller that you use to charge your batteries so they don't, blow up. Or I've never seen it happen, but I've been told it's bad. If you don't have a charge controller, have a charge controller to protect your batteries. So that's kind of all you got other than an inverter so you can use the power. And you let the sun hit your panels, and the panels charge the charge controller, and the charge controller charges the batteries, and everybody's happy. And once the battery's totally full, that's great because it's like use it or lose it. We get all this extra power. But it's different with things like micro hydro and things like wind power, where it actually becomes a problem if your batteries are topped off and you're still generating power because you need to dump that load somewhere, or again, it's I'm not an electrician, and I only have a marginal knowledge of all this stuff enough to kind of make my way through it. But it causes problems, overheat problems, badness. It causes general badness if you aren't able to dump that load somewhere. I assume it overloads something. So you have to have plans for what you're going to do with the extra power once your batteries are full. When you have something like a wind turbine or a micro hydro setup. A lot of people will just have a water heating element in a water heating tank, and they'll just throw the extra energy into there. Or I was thinking I might just run a water pump and have the water pump water up a hill or something like that. And but it's kind of an interesting issue to have to deal with. You need to have plans for this power so that you don't cause problems in your system.
Yeah. What do you think? You want to start taking a few questions here from people?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've already wasted so much of their time already.
Yeah, you guys, I hope you enjoyed the chicken stories. So Ben, if you have questions, try to throw them in caps if you could. It'll help me catch them. Ben Biggie says, what are some tips if you live in a very small home? We only have so much food we only have so much room for food preps. We have a lot of things, but food adds up and it's heavy on the shelves. I got some thoughts on this. What do you think?
All right. Well, I started out before I built my first house. I've built two houses, two full-size houses, and I have a whole smattering of little mini houses. But before I ever built my first house, I lived in a travel trailer in a campground, and it is wonderful doing that in the summertime. It's beautiful. It's like you're on vacation all the time. In the winter, it's not like the movie stars make it out to be, being in their trailer. So, it's come and go. But one thing that a travel trailer is small. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of when I started. Some of my prepping work was when I was doing that kind of stuff. It's difficult because, mm-hmm. You have like a limited, amount of space. I'm just curious. I'm going to talk as though maybe you have a basement. I'm not sure. I know in some places of the world that basements aren't a big thing, but a lot can be done with a basement because a basement offers a lot of advantages for food storage. I've always put my pantries in basements because they tend to be kind of cool. Mm-hmm. they don't tend to be kind of dry. Dry is something you want for food storage. You can run a dehumidifier, but they do tend to be cool and they do tend to be dark. So a basement is not a bad place to store extra food preps. And they can be done as simply as just throwing them into like 5-gallon buckets. I started a lot of my pantry food in like these big, they're actually pets food storage containers. They're in like number 2 plastic. You got a gamma 2 lid that screws off of them. That was back when those things weren't so expensive. They're a little more expensive now when I expanded my food storage. And I've just been using like Home Depot buckets. Those are made out of number 2 plastic, which is FDA approved for food with sort of a warning that not all number 2 plastic is totally safe to use for food because some of it gets additives put in, and it wouldn't surprise me if Home Depot buckets have additives put into them. Maybe like even the color because they're all bright orange. Right. But any kind of a bucket, you can get a special kind of gamma 2 lid, and those are these like screw-on lids. You get a little top you can snap on, and it makes it so much easier to get in and out of your buckets if you're storing food in them that way. If you are just going to use like any old random bucket, you can just put a liner in there or something, mm-hmm. like any kind of a plastic bag. Just as insurance. And, that's what I would suggest, is just kind of starting small. But it's difficult when you live in one of those environments. That's one of the reasons I moved out to the countryside. I referenced it earlier in this video here where I was talking about like just the freedom that you get when, you don't have to ask permission to do mm-hmm. this or that. Mm-hmm. I know you live in a city and, mm-hmm. You want to dig a hole in the ground, and I think technically you got to like call someone up and like, you got to like call someone up to like, dig a hole in the ground. Out here in the country, it almost sounds like a joke. It's like getting a permit to breathe. Right. I know that it's difficult for people to, just go out and move out into the country. I know that there are challenges associated with that. And I can demonstrate my knowledge of that, but based on the fact that I used to live in a trailer while I was saving up to do all this stuff. So I do recognize that, the challenge in that. But one thing that I think a lot of people sometimes miss, and I think my channel in particular, that's where our mosquitoes are coming from. My channel in particular might be, one of the factors that contributes to this issue is, people see my channel and I've got a house that is a house that a prepper built after decades of doing this kind of stuff. This wasn't my first house, and I think it can be kind of daunting when people see preppers who have been doing it for such a long period of time. Prepping isn't a situation where you're either at 0 or you're at 100. There's a grayscale in there, and I think I'm probably at like 30 or something like that because there's so much farther that all of us can go. But I think a lot of times people get daunted by the idea that, if they're going to do something along the lines of being a prepper, along the lines of being prepared, they see like National Geographic, like doomsday castles and that kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, that's, I'm never going to do that. So, like what's even the point? You can really get a lot out of those first couple steps. Me, I said like maybe I'm like in a spectrum of 0 to 100. Maybe I'm at like a 30 or something like that. Going from 30 to 31, those are the little incremental steps. Going from 0 to 1 is huge because you started with absolutely no preparedness, and getting to that first level is it's geometric, where like it's almost like the longer you've been doing it, the less impact each new thing you do kind of cumulatively has. When you first start out, those first couple things that you are securing for yourself, they're absolutely enormous. Like if you can get some kind of land where you could just put like a little cottage or a cabin, and I'm writing a book right now with instructions on how to build a 20-foot by 10-foot little remote cottage, like down to the nail, like how to go through the whole procedure. If someone can do something like that, even if you can't get an occupancy permit to live there, even if you don't have plumbing in there, even if you don't have heating in there, just having a situation where you have land, you have breathing space, and you have like some kind of, even if it's not like 20 foot by 10, even if it's like 10 by 10 or 5 by 5, having something where you can store all these types of things, it's a huge, my vocabulary is just
redundancy.
My mouth. It's a huge redundancy. It's a huge step forward, and just taking some of those little steps at the beginning. You don't necessarily have to worry about like, well, I want to build a prepper house that I can live in, and I'm gonna like be raising chickens. Just having something, I think is huge, and it's a really exciting journey to start out on as well, because when you first start out, it's like the sky's the limit. You have no idea, like this could go anywhere. All the doors are open until you make choices. So I would suggest investigating the idea of maybe getting some land somewhere where you could do something small, because land is expensive when it's the kind of land that people value. And the kind of land that people value is land on a convenient street with like good internet access, and like maybe they don't have a mud season or whatever. It's like easy access to get at. But in a lot of ways, that's like the antithesis of what preppers want, because we want to kind of be like a little difficult to get to and everything. Right. If you can get land that's kind of irritating to other people, that like land that's not visible, land that's not buildable, it's too rocky, it's too slopey, and you can kind of leverage that, you can get really good deals on land, and you can just put something small on there. And that's huge, having just something small out there that you can go to in an emergency, and you can, use it for a vacation spot, if you like just being outdoors, and you can get all these other benefits out of it as well. So that would be what I would suggest is, use the space that you have, but, try to get yourself to a position where you can at least kind of make a few introductory steps in some direction. And, it doesn't have to be super, super expensive. You don't have to go all the way.
Yep.
I'm sorry, that was really wordy. I apologize.
That's okay. You actually partially answered one of the other questions from Nerdy Prepper, Treasurer Investor. But
okay, so it's only mildly wordy if you divide it up amongst the two. Then.
But let me circle back to Ben here for a second. So Ben, just to add to what was said here, and I saw that some people were helping you in comments as well. Look, if you're maxed out on your storage, and I understand that because I had a house that was around the same size as yours many moons ago when I was living in Massachusetts. And if you're maxed out on that kind of stuff, your closet space under the beds, it's all kind of occupied at this point. Look into sprouting and microgreens as another option for giving you some food self-sufficiency. So just briefly, very briefly, you can store a ton of sprouting seeds, a ton in very small space. And I did a video on this a while back. You can within 5 days. So I've got a couple sprouting kits. I plan to add a couple more so that like you could do a rotational thing. But basically, if we found out today that the grocery stores are not going to have any food anymore forever, right? Like I know it's kind of out there, but just as an example, if I found that out today, I could immediately start doing some sprouting, and in 5 days, I've got fresh food. And if you've got multiple of those kits, which again, they're very small and you can store a ton of seeds. Once you do one on day 1, day 2, you start another one. Day 3, you start another one. Day 4, you start another one. Day 5, you're harvesting. Day 6, the next one's ready. And then you just keep rotating. And you're gonna get sick of that pretty fast, but it's gonna get you some nutrients and some calories, and it's gonna help to keep you going. So it gives you quite a bit of food self-sufficiency for very little space.
Can I jump in on that too?
Yeah.
Because I do sprouting constantly. I've got them constantly going, like in every day or every 2 days, I've got new sprouts. And another benefit of that is that it kind of forces you to get more greens into your diet, because you know that if you don't eat them, they're all going to like mold up. So, I love that aspect to it. It's like having your parent there saying, you got to get your greens. Even without any emergency happening, if you start with it, it's just a great way of getting fresh veg into your diet.
Yeah, and the not to chew up all of our time with this, but sprouts and microgreens are just so densely packed with nutrients, and even because as the plant grows, some of the plant proteins kind of don't become as chemically evident, if you will, in the plant. But when it's small, when it's in sprout form or microgreens form, there's still a lot of plant protein that's available within there. Is it as good as animal protein? There's arguments to be made there, right? But if it was the only protein that I could get, I'm going to take it. So yeah, check those out. And then Nerdy Prepper, Treasure Investor, I think you partially answered this, but what's the hardest part of building a home from scratch? Buying the land, getting the approval from the county, or actually building it itself?
Okay. Well, all the steps in that process all have their challenges. The big challenge when you're buying land, and actually Nate, the Canadian prepper, he is, I don't know, within the last couple of days, he's I don't want to out him. Okay, I'm going to put it this way. Nate is very interested in getting land, and I'm always like sending him emails like, you should get going with it, or like, how's your search going? And one of the things that holds Nate up is something that I think it vexes all of us, and that is getting back to that 0 to 100 kind of thing. Is that when you think about like the perfect land that you would want, I don't know about you, but it's like, for me, it's going to have like white-capped mountains off in the distance, and you have beautiful pastoral fields, and it's always going to be spring or summer, and there's going to be like Caribbean beaches down on one side. You get all these checklists of all these things that you would like to see in land. I know that not everyone's as ridiculous as that, but we all get these kind of check boxes in our minds. And some of them are important, and some of them are critical. And, some of them are, maybe things that would be nice, but you could kind of do without. And one of the most difficult things when you are looking for property is, finding something you can afford, but also kind of settling on something, because, whatever you find, there's going to be strengths and there's going to be weaknesses. And what I was saying to Nate the other day was that, whatever property you find, you're going to find a way of making it your own. Like, if you've ever been camping, you just go out to some random place in the woods, and the first day that you're there, it's like, there's sticks sticking up, and like, maybe there's like rocks under your tent. And if you're going to be there for like a week or something like that, you're going to take the time to maybe like, like move those sticks out of the way, or like reach under the tent, get those rocks out. So like after the first day, it's a little bit more comfortable. And if you're going to be there a little bit longer, and you're, cooking, and you got kind of like a little fire set up, maybe you're going to make the fire ring a little nicer. And then after a couple of days, you need a place to put all your pots, because you don't want to just have them on the ground. So, you add like a little, like you found this kind of cool board there. After a week, the place kind of starts feeling like your own, even just like kind of moving, the dead leaves out of the way, and, it's just kind of smoother walking. So whatever place you find, over time, you're going to be able to make it your own. You're going to be able to make modifications to it. And, a lot of those kind of like checklist items, you're going to be able to do without a lot of those, whether I don't have snow-capped mountains from my view. So I think that's the biggest challenge is trying to figure out what are the things that you absolutely need. I think I won't go through those, but obviously like water and, assets like that. What are the absolute critical things? And then finding a place that that you can work with and understand that you're going to improve it over time. So I think that's the big challenge when you're looking for land. Obviously, there's the saving up the money part. If you can save up the money to buy it without doing a bank loan, by saving up over a period of time. And again, I referenced earlier, I lived in a trailer, so that I was saving up like $20,000 or $30,000 a year because I was living. I was earning $20,000 or $30,000 more than I was spending. I wasn't making very much. I think I made like 40, and I lived on like 10 or something like that. This is like 20 years ago. It was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
if you can save up the money yourself or like, borrow from, friends or family or whatever, it makes it so much easier not having to deal with banks because, banks have all these, levels of risk, that they have to work with. And, the more people you can cut out of the equation, the better. So, I would recommend, don't worry about doing it absolutely right away. I know in the current world climate, people are always like, constantly ticking down to like World War III or whatever, it always seems like it's right on the cusp of occurring. But, it's important to always, continue to have like kind of long-term plans. That's the whole idea of prepping is we plan to be here for some kind of a long period. So why not act that way and, financially plan with, some longevity to what you're expecting to do. And if you can, buy it without a bank loan, it's going to make it a lot easier to purchase it, and it's also obviously going to make it cheaper because you're not having to pay interest on it. What the other part of that question was the building, I think.
Which part of it?
Permits and the permits and everything. Did I miss any? Well, I'll talk about the permits next. The permitting process. I think in my experience, the permitting process has never really been a big deal. And I live in a part of the country, New England, that isn't associated with being tremendously libertarian and like hands off in terms of government. We've got, the government that's always kind of looking over your shoulder. I'm building a deck this summer. That's another one of my projects. I built a firewood shed and it's got 2 entrances. And I never made a way to get up into any of the entrances. So I better they help make my deck this year so I can actually get up into the entrance and get firewood for next season. When I was just putting up a deck, I had to get like a permit, and I just paid for it today. It was $60 to get the permit. So, we don't live here in an area where there's no rules or whatever, but it's never really been that difficult for me to go through the permitting process. And I think the reason for that is that I've always tried to work with the building inspector, who's kind of like your point person during the whole process, as being like an ally, like being a member of your team to help you get through the process. And I know for certain that not every town is going to be like this. I know there are a-hole people out there that just enjoy being a-holes to people. I know that exists. But in my experience, I have not run across them. I know people who have. I know that they absolutely exist. But I don't think that it's necessarily a preponderance. So if you go into a situation presuming that you have this adversarial relationship with the building inspector, you're almost going to kind of manifest it that way. So, if you are going to do this, when you meet with the building inspector, think of them, like I said, as like a point person, member of your team. They're there to, kind of help you through the process. And, the questions are all like, what do I need to provide to you to, get going on this? And they'll tell you, well, I need this paperwork done, this, and this, and this, and this. And, I've always had really great luck with them kind of helping me through the process and making sure that everything happens. Does it happen as fast as I would like it? No. I mean, the reason I moved in on Christmas Eve here was because the electrical inspector was the same person who's like the fire chief, and like you could never get a hold of them. And they finally showed up. But as long as you try to keep a positive attitude about it, it's going to just go so much easier for you because I mean, we all feel that way. If someone comes up to you and they already feel like that you're their enemy, they're going to make that happen because you're going to feel that negative kind of energy and you're just going to kind of respond to it. So, so that'd be my second bit of advice is, look at the people that you are, having to kind of provide all this, these check boxes to, see them as allies as best you can. And that brings you to the last part of the process, which is the actual building part. And I think the best way to describe building would be to say, I think I referenced earlier, I built 2 full-size houses, multiple tiny little houses. But before I built my first full-size house, I hadn't even ever built a birdhouse before. I know nothing about carpentry. I'm a photographer. Like I did some special effects. My dad used to, work carpentry when he was young, and when I was growing up, he would, do some things around the house. But I wasn't interested in that. I was like an artist, and I did my video and film work and all that kind of stuff. I never had any interest in it at all until I decided to build my own house. And I don't even know why I decided to build my own house. I'm glad that I did, because it set me down this whole wonderful road. I think building your own house is one of the most important things a human being can do. And the reason that I feel that way is because, honestly, after you build a house, especially if you're not a carpenter, it doesn't really seem like there's anything that you couldn't figure out how to do. After you do that, it's a tremendous confidence booster, and it really unlocks, I think, something primitive in, I was going to say human beings, but I think it's just all life forms. I mean, what life form is there on the planet that doesn't build its own house except for humans?
Wow. I never thought about that, but yeah.
I mean, it's a birthright of being a living organism that this is something that we crave. This is something we want to do. It gets back to like the campground.
It's very primal.
We're mentioning. Yes, it is, and it's not. It's not just an action that you perform. It is like it's a relationship with the world around you, where you start to see yourself as being not a recipient of it, but an active player in this, whatever you want to call, this existence that we have. And once you start feeling like an active player, where you feel like things up here can be turned into things out here in the real world. In fact, that's my channel. It's called Praxis Prepper. The word praxis, it's a Greek word, and it means the process of taking an idea and turning it into a physical reality. Once you realize that that's something that you're capable of, it doesn't just end at houses. It spreads into every other aspect of your life when you realize that you have that capacity to have things within inside yourself that you can manifest out into the world and create things that had never been created before. And I think that's really, really empowering. And that's why I'm constantly advocating for people to get into this. Even if you're not going to build your entire, like a whole house, just build something. Build some kind of a structure that you can even like sleep in overnight or something like that. It's a tremendously empowering experience. It's a lot of work, but the amount of work that you put into it is discretionary. The house that I'm in now, it's like 24 feet wide by 30 feet long, and it's got two, I think they're like 14 feet wide greenhouses on either side. It was a big project. I mean, I lie down on the floor and I can look up 3 stories, because where our wood stove is, it's open all the way up to the top. So I'll like lie down on the floor and I'll look 3 stories up. It was much bigger than maybe it needed to be. I could have made something much smaller. But that was discretionary. I could have made something much smaller that I could have made much faster. You can build a house for yourself in a summer.
Yeah.
A small house. But once you do that, I don't know. If you're like me, you get the bug, and then you want to kind of keep at it. I kind of don't think of it as work when I'm doing it. I mean, it's grueling sometimes, and the weather's not great. You bang your finger. There was one day. There's 2 days in my career when I banged my finger with a hammer, and I was just like, "That's it. I'm done for the day. I'm not going to do anything more." And it wasn't late either. It was like mid-morning. I was just like, "I'm done."
Yeah.
But so yeah, it's sweaty, it's dirty, it's uncomfortable, but it's so empowering to do it that I recommend it to anyone, even if just on a small scale.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love what you just said there, and I wanted to sidebar just a little bit based on something you said that really caught my attention. And when I watch your channel, a lot of times when I hear you speaking about certain topics and the way that you approach certain things, and even some of the controversial stuff and that goes on in the community, a lot of times when I'm watching it, I'm like, I think that Praxis thinks in some ways very similar to how I think about,
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's one of the things I like about your channel is the way you think. Yeah.
Thank you. But you said something there about like, when you see it and then you create it, like more things become possible. And last stream, I don't know if you caught near the end of it, I got a little bit ethereal with this stuff. I like quantum physics. Are you into any of that stuff? or law of attraction
I
manifest.
don't pretend to
Okay.
fully understand.
I don't either. I don't
What
either.
I think is interesting about quantum physics, what I think is interesting about quantum physics is I think it shines light on the potential fact that the universe is so confusing and complicated that humans don't have the physical capacity to even understand it.
We don't.
I think like quantum physics like puts that in our face that like no matter how much we learn about it, maybe our brains just like an ant is never ever going to understand multiplication or whatever.
Right.
It just can't happen. We as humans have to be open to the idea that there are some concepts in this universe that we just physically cannot understand, and quantum physics is that that reminder for me that there are limits.
There are, and there's more and more mathematical. It's not proof; it's just theory, and it's mathematical. Yeah. Math is pointing in this direction that the universe is constructing itself, and that our consciousness is part of that construction. That we're a contributor to the future, right? If you want to think of it as time in a linear fashion, which we could get into a whole nother thing about that, but if you want to think of time in a linear fashion, that our thoughts and our actions are constructing the universe to some extent.
Well, that's why whenever I hear people talk about man-made and natural and artificial, it separates us from the system, but we're a part of the system. We're a part of the universe. We are the universe creating and manifesting itself and seeing itself. Carl Sagan has a wonderful quote where he said the universe created us so that the universe could contemplate itself. But anyway, please.
And so as a therapist, we operate within the world of cognitive behavioral therapy as one of our primal, that's one of our bases of our modalities, which is basically thought, really, really simplified here, but thoughts, behaviors, and feelings are all related, right? And so your thoughts start the process.
Oh, I did catch that. Yeah. I remember you talking about thoughts are like the first step. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, and then if you wanted to take it in a different direction where people have kind of a new age approach to things where they're talking about law of attraction and manifesting, right? Mm-hmm. From my perspective, I've spent the last 3 or 4 years reading about this stuff, meditating on it, absorbing as much videos as I could find from really people who are much, much smarter than I am, and just trying to make sense of it all. And the conclusion that I've come to after 3 or 4 years of doing this pretty heavily is that they're all the same thing. Cognitive behavioral therapy, law of attraction, and quantum physics are really saying the same thing, but just with different language.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I know the idea of the observer influencing the outcome in quantum theory and everything. It's always something I've had difficulty wrapping my mind around. What defines an observer? And
and it's pretty mind-melting stuff. You can can go down a big rabbit hole with that. And you're right. I don't think we ever, maybe not in our lifetimes anyways, our brains can't fully comprehend it. We're going to try though.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with trying something, even if you're going to fail. There's value in that.
Yeah. It's like trying to explain to a dolphin what Mars is like. Right.
I don't know. Yeah. There's some theories. Maybe dolphins are aliens from Mars and they're just, watching us or whatever. Was that the SpongeBob movie, I think?
Yeah. I've heard that about octopus and cephalopods, that they're so strange that they don't seem to fully match up with the rest of the genetic chain on planet Earth. So
they branched off super early and they're very smart. I remember I used to be completely vegetarian and now I'm I don't eat that much meat, but I do have some. But when I started being vegetarian, octopus were one of the first things I stopped eating because I was they're too smart. I don't feel like I should be eating these things because they're a really intelligent creature in such strange ways too.
Yeah. All right, well, let me finish off with one more topic if you got time. Can you spare a few more minutes with us?
Yeah, as much as you need.
Okay, so first of all, if you've enjoyed this so far, audience, thank you so much. And great chatter, great questions, great comments there. If you got anything of value, please consider giving us a thumbs up. More importantly, please make sure you check out Praxis Prepper. If you're not somehow already subscribed to him, please do so. And check out, he's kind enough to share some of his house build and some of his design aspects that he did with his homestead. You really have done a beautiful, beautiful job with it. I think you put a lot of great thought into, if this was going to be the place where I was going to live forever, what would I want in this thing? And I think you did a great job that a lot of people can learn from. But I'm going to shift gears.
It was my second draft, so.
Okay. Well, that's great, though. You learned a lot from the first one, right?
Yeah.
Right. All right. So last thing I want to hit on today is I like that the what you do with the filmmaking, and I think it's such a clever way to introduce people to prepping that maybe don't even know how to get started, right? But they watch one of these entertaining videos about alien invasion, and they see some concepts here, and they're like, hey, this actually kind of makes sense, right? Like, maybe I should have a little extra food. Maybe I should have some extra of my medications stored. Maybe I need to think about how do I protect myself, right? What can you share with the audience a little bit about like where that comes from for you? I know a little bit about it, but I don't know if everybody does.
Like where the concept of doing those types of videos came from?
Yeah, and your filmmaking skills and everything that goes along with it. Like,
okay, sure. Yeah,
did you go to film school?
Yeah, just briefly. Yeah, I went to school for film, and that's why I worked in the industry for a couple. It doesn't matter how long. For a while, I worked in the industry for a while. I was doing pretty well at it. I was, well respected. I got was able to get rid of clients that I didn't like. Like the last several years that I was doing that kind of thing, it was just like getting paid to hang out with your friends, and really, it's an enjoyable profession because you're always doing kind of the same thing, but slightly different variations of it. I ended up stopping that back in 2015, and I started being full-time stay-at-home dad, and doing this kind of stuff. But it's fun. It's enjoyable doing filmmaking, and I wanted to keep my skills sort of present because you'll lose them over time. So I was trying to think about ways that I could kind of use my filmmaking skills in a way that would also kind of share some of the stuff that I think is important. I host my channel because I enjoy the interaction with people, but also I really do think that it's an important mission to get this information out to as many people as possible, and I mean that in a completely 100% selfish way, and I also mean it in an altruistic way. But really, it's a very selfish motivation to want to make sure that prepping lessons get out to a vast majority of the population, because if you are going to live in a community and there's going to be a disaster, do you want to live in a community where everybody's pretty prepared and it's like not that big of a deal, or do you want to live in a community where you're like the only prepper and everybody else is like bloody at the eyes, desperate after day 2? Is like, just for your own personal situation, it's so much better to try to spread these ideas out to people. Yeah. So I know a lot of people do it from like kind of like an ego kind of standpoint, where it's like, you're so stupid if you're not prepping, and they're trying to convince people that they're like crazy if they're not doing it. I come at it from a different perspective, where I think that it would benefit me and my family if more people were doing this. So I try to put some sugar in that lemonade when I'm spreading the stuff. So I try to make stuff kind of as entertaining as I can. That took the form of a whole series that I did, where it was like a fake alien invasion, and it's like each episode is like a different prepping topic. Like one was, my character was gathering wild edible plants so that they could eat during the alien invasion, or setting up like tripwire alarms so that like people wouldn't sneak up on them. So it's like just essentially prepper skills, like digging a Dakota fire hole to survive the alien invasion kind of thing. I did that to try to make it entertaining for people, People seem to like it. I think it's one of the more popular things that I've done here on my channel. It gets its fair share of negative comments on it as well. One of my favorites is that people oftentimes, because the series is called Alien Invasion, people will stop by thinking that it's just like popcorn and bubblegum entertainment, and they'll get in there and they'll be like, "This is just a bunch of educational material," and I'll usually reply like, "Yeah, that's kind of the point. Sorry." Yes. Yeah, but so I try to do that. I also try to do a lot of comedy stuff on my channel, or at least my version of comedy stuff. I'll sometimes do like a fun little opening sketch to some topic or whatever. Sometimes I'll literally make a video because I came up with a funny intro video that I want to do. One of my favorite ones was I made a video about things you could do at home regarding dentistry, like cleaning your teeth and stuff. I'd gotten a pack of dental tools, like, like just little planers and scalers and things like that. And I love using them now. Like, when you go to the dentist and like, you can feel how like clean and sharp your teeth are after they like clean them up. I like get that feeling like whenever the hell I want it. So I came up with this idea that I wanted to do this like intro video that was like a comedy about like amateur dentistry, where I would take somebody and like strap them down to a chair and attach all the dental tools to my hand like Freddy Krueger and be all like creepy and everything. And I ended up making the video just so I could do the intro. I shot it all like black and white like a horror movie, and I had like makeup on like an old like German expressionist cinema. Like what's the cabinet of Dr. Caligari or whatever. So sometimes I'll come up with a concept for an opening that I want to do, and I'll reverse engineer some kind of a prepper topic that I could use to legitimize it.
I love that. It's so creative, and the special effects that you've done on some of that alien stuff. I think that was also one of the first things that I had seen on your channel.
Well, that used to be my job as well, as I did visual effects. And the great thing, actually, the reason I chose aliens is it's whenever you have like special effects interacting with each other. Like if I was just going to have the spoon floating on your screen, I know it's out of focus now because I got a narrow depth of field. But if I was just going to have this spoon floating here and I'm not holding it, it'd be easy to just like composite that thing in. I get a photo of a spoon and I just stick it in. It's like Photoshop for video. But if I take that spoon and I start like rotating it around and hitting it and bouncing it around in my hands, it gets really, really complicated really fast. So interacting with the objects you're adding into a frame can be really difficult. Hence, spaceships up in the sky, not touching anything. That's why I came up with the idea for alien invasion, was because, well, I like sci-fi, I like alien kind of stuff anyway, but super easy to have those spaceships up there because nothing bumps into them. They don't brush by trees or anything. So I kind of customized it to make it kind of easy to do.
Well, it's very cool. I hope everybody gets a chance to check that out as well. And while we were chatting about this, Pentucky said to tell you that you're also an amazing dad.
I try. I think anyone who's a good dad always thinks that they're never doing a good enough job, though. So I think I'm at 30 on being a dad too. So like right now, my boy over there. River, you still over there? No, he went up to read
inside.
Up in his bed. I gotta go and say goodnight to him soon.
No problem. We're gonna wrap it up anyways. So I really appreciate you joining us and giving us all your time tonight. And you are certainly.
Pleasure.
Yeah, you're welcome back here anytime, of course. And if you ever do another live stream and you want me to come over there, I'm more than happy to come to your house there and do some fun. We can do whatever you want to talk about.
Fun. Well, let's work something like that out.
Maybe we could talk about quantum chickens.
I'll have to do some homework first.
Okay. And everybody in the audience, I want to say thank you too. Really great chat tonight. Great support for each other too. I love when you all give tips and help for each other. That's the best part of this, really. I always end with something positive. So I had something in mind for tonight, but I'm going to shift it. And I want to like take a piece out of what Praxis was saying earlier, that just start with something, right? Start small, pick a project. And it can be building a little shed, or it can be, starting to learn some food prep stuff, or, building a shelf so you can, store a couple more canned goods. But pick a spot of something that you can improve on, and just start with one small step, because breaking out of the inertia, I think, is often the hardest part of any project. Or learning something new, it's just getting started is the hardest part. At least it is for me. And then once I get going, things tend to snowball, and you start to develop more ideas. And you think, well, hey, that shed came out really cool. Maybe I put a little greenhouse right next to it. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh, well, I could put a hot box on the other side. And I could do a rain barrel on the back, and I could put a solar panel up there, and I could put some light inside the shed. And it tends to snowball, right? But pick a project. Start small and just go, because it'll happen for you if you do that. So that's my message for today. You have any parting words of wisdom?
No, but other than what you just said there, I know that I get faced with that feeling a lot when I've been building my place, because sometimes there's so many tasks involved when do I put up this wall? Do I put up that wall? Do I do these boards? It always seems like, well, I shouldn't do that until I do this, and I shouldn't do this until I do that. Sometimes you get into those kind of situations, and the question I always ask myself is very similar to what you just said. It's like, what is a thing? It may not be the best thing, but what's a thing that I could do right now that would make my situation better? And you start with that, and if you get out of the idea again of having to be the absolute best perfect thing and just do a thing that will make things better, I think it breaks you out of the inertia, like you said, and that's great advice.
Yep, awesome. Well, everybody, I hope you have a great weekend. Get something accomplished. I know for me, I have to finish my taxes this weekend, so that's my goal. I got to get it done. But get something done and make sure you spend some time with your loved ones too, because that's super important. Life goes by so fast. We don't know how many days we're guaranteed. So take that time to do that and check in on each other too. All right. You all have a great weekend. Keep planting your seeds. Keep stacking your silver. This is Praxis Prepper and Prepping with Sarge. Good night, everybody.